The House will please come to order. Sergeant at Arms.
The House is now in session.
The members will please rise and be led in prayer by Bishop Ernest Moore, Destiny Community Church, Richmond, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, led by the delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring.
God, our God, thank you for every delegate in the House. As they convene today, help them to see that they are your servant leaders first and foremost, legislating things for the good of our Commonwealth. Give our leaders the grace to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly before you in all integrity. May they defend the oppressed, protect the virtuous, and right any wrongs. Please give them the wisdom to enact laws and regulations that will foster an environment where every citizen can flourish spiritually, socially, and physically. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Play ball.
The members will please answer the roll call by indicating their presence on the electronic voting device. Madam Clerk.
I'll now call the names of those who I do not yet see voting on the roll call. Delegate Aird.
Aye, here.
Delegate Aird is present. Delegate Austin.
Present.
Delegate Austin is present. Delegate Byron.
Present.
Delegate Byron is present. Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Present.
Delegate Campbell is present. Delegate Cole, M.L.
Present.
Delegate Cole is present. Delegate Hayes.
Delegate Hayes is present.
Delegate Hayes is present. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring is present.
Delegate Herring is present. Delegate Corey.
Delegate Corey is present.
Delegate Corey is present. Delegate McQuinn.
Delegate McQuinn is present.
Delegate McQuinn is present. Delegate Moorfield. Delegate Mugler.
Delegate Mugler is present.
Delegate Mugler is present. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon is present.
Delegate Runyon is present. Delegate Simon.
Present.
Delegate Simon is present. Delegate Williams Graves.
Delegate Williams Graves is present.
Delegate Williams Graves is present. Delegate Wilt.
Present.
Delegate Wilt is present. Madam Speaker, a quorum is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Pursuant to House Rule 3, I've examined and approved the journals of the House of Delegates for Saturday, February 27th and Monday, March 1st. Motions and resolutions under Rule 39 pursuant to the provisions of Rule 40 are now in order. The clerk will please announce the first order of business, morning hour order of business, including any clerk's announcements and communications.
First morning hour order of business, there are a few announcements. First, please mute your mics unless you're speaking. Please turn on your camera so we know you're here and we can see you when you're speaking. The call-in information for technology problems is 804-698-1560. And as another reminder, the governor's recommendations, including the budget amendments, are in the calendar and are also available via IHOD and on LIS. Enrolled bills are also available electronically via IHOD and LIS. I emailed you 2 days ago the House procedures that govern how legislation will be handled today during the reconvened session. And the last reminder is that all commending and memorial joint resolutions from the 2021 regular and 2021 special session 1 have been prepared as presentation copies and are in the member's office in the Pocahontas building, along with any framed requests. Pursuant to House Rule 40, the Speaker requests members to use their request to speak buttons for first morning hour items.
The delegate from Fredericksburg, Delegate Cole.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
Delegate Cole, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We were graced this morning with our our invocation by Bishop Ernest Leon Moore, who pastors in Southside Richmond. Bishop Moore is the pastor of Destiny International Holistic Ministries in Southside. He has previously served as pastor of the Koinonia Church, Farmer Street Church of God of Prophecy, and the Cathedral of Life in Temple Hills, Maryland. And he is a 2011 graduate of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at the Virginia Union University. Bishop Moore is a strong prophetic voice in the Richmond community. We are glad to have him, and I'm glad to call him a mentor and a prophetic advisor. And even though he may be a constituent of Delegate Jeff Bourne, he is still my spiritual advisor, and we give thanks and praise that he was able to join us today. So I would ask that the House would give him a warm house welcome.
Thank you so much, Delegate Cole, and welcome, Bishop Moore. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for your inspiration. We also thank Chairman Bourne as well for sharing you with us, and thank you for those kind words, Delegate Bourne, and welcome, Bishop Moore. Glad you could join us virtually today. The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Guzman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise for a motion.
Delegate Guzman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that when this body adjourns today, that we adjourn in the honor of memory of the late Albert Brooks, and I would like to speak to that motion.
Delegate Guzman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On March 25th, the 31st District and the Dale City community lost a local civil rights activist, Al Brooks. He was born in 1943 in the Bed-Stuy neighborhood of New York. Al would have come to meet Malcolm X and Ayan Aretha Franklin during his travels in his youth. He would eventually move back to Buffalo, New York, and become involved in the local NAACP chapter. Al would go on to work under A. Philip Randolph to push for the integration of labor unions and a more equitable job market for Black and brown people. Al moved to Virginia to serve as civil rights investigator for the Department of Transportation and came to settle down in Dale City, Virginia. He would go to form the African American Democratic Club with longtime Dumfries Councilman Willie Tawney. The club was formed to empower the voices of the African American community in Prince William County by registering people to vote, restoring voting rights, and ensuring that we had Black and brown candidates running for office. He spent countless hours knocking on doors to support candidates, and he had the reputation for being the best dressed canvasser, always in a clean three-piece suit. Al was a tireless advocate for voters and the Democratic Party. He was known for his work to encourage early voting, and he manned the Prince William County Department of Motor Vehicles, which was our major absentee in-person voting location, every day for 45 days straight. I remember stopping by and bringing him something to eat or offering to relieve him for an hour, but he would always say no. He needed to ensure that he spoke with every person coming to the DMV so they knew that there was a Democrat on the ballot. He was a true ally and friend to all folks that came in contact with him. I can say confidently that his leadership and legacy will never be forgotten. Al was a precinct captain for the Enterprise Precinct, which I proudly represent. It's a majority-minority precinct where Black and brown people are the majority of the population. In all of the conversations I had with Al, it was always clear to me that the only way that we can fight for a more equal society in Virginia is by uniting the voices of Black and brown people. He always embraced the Latino community and their contributions to Prince William County. He believed that we could only have a voice if we had a seat at the table, and would say we need to ensure we improve the lives of Black and brown people. And the only way to do that is by ensuring we have elected officials that look like us. I will miss his warm heart and his whispered promise that he will tell me, "We got you, sister." I want Al and his family to know that he'll never be forgotten. His years of dedication and service to the community has transformed Prince William County for the better. Thank you all. So today, with heavy heart, I ask this body to adjourn in the honor and memory of the late Al Brooks, and that we send our prayers to Mrs. Barbara Brooks and their entire family. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Delegate Guzman. Delegate Guzman moves that when the House adjourn today, we adjourn in the honor and the memory of Al Brooks. As many as favor that motion shall please rise. Thank you very much, Delegate Guzman, for those words and for sharing with us a little bit about your friend and your mentor. And we send our condolences to his family and to the entire Prince William community as he clearly left his mark. We appreciate his dedication to the community, and we're thinking of you all at this challenging time. Thank you very much, Delegate Guzman. The delegate from Hanover, Delegate Fowler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for an announcement and a motion.
Delegate Fowler, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of the House. On Tuesday, March the 9th, the General Assembly lost one of our own, Virginia Capitol Police Officer, Master Officer Woodrow Buddy Dowdy III from COVID-19 following a brief illness. Buddy was 60 years old. Buddy was a 33-year veteran of the Virginia Division of Capitol Police. In many ways, Buddy was the face of our state capitol as he was stationed for longer than I can remember at Post 1, which is the main entrance to the Capitol. Always greeting governors, members, and staff, and visitors with a smile, Buddy was kind and helpful to all, but always the consummate professional. Chief Pike described Officer Dowdy best, stating, quote, his easygoing personality allowed him to be professional while also making visitors feel relaxed and welcome. Buddy was a longtime member of the division's honor guard. A kind man, Buddy exemplified strength and honor. Buddy was a lover of all things, even mowing grass. He started off each morning praying while tending to his roses. Buddy and his son Wilson were widely known for riding their ATVs and go-karts, hanging out at Buckrow Beach, then heading to Doughboys at Virginia Beach. Buddy and I were planning to head down to Buckrow Beach pier this summer for some fishing, Madam Speaker, but we will just have to reschedule that one. Buddy's favorite activity was anything involving his 1976 Camaro. Buddy also enjoyed getting together with his Hermitage Panther pals, where we greatly enjoyed telling tall tales and embellishing their victories and defeats. Many of Buddy's childhood adventures were recounted in his published book, The Neighborhood. Buddy played baseball with the Bethlehem Redlegs, was a wrestling champion at Hermitage High School, and a diehard Green Bay Packers fan. Buddy was preceded in death by his cherished mother, Margaret. Buddy was survived by his father, Woody Dowdy Jr., his wife, Cheryl, his son, Wilson, sisters, Karen, Marie, and Tricia, and numerous nieces and nephews. Madam Speaker, members of the House, the world needs more Buddy Dowdys. Madam Speaker, I have a motion.
Delegate Fowler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, that it do so in honor and memory of Virginia Capitol Master Police Officer Woodrow Buddy Dowdy III.
Thank you, Delegate Fowler. Delegate Fowler moves that when the House adjourn today, it adjourn in the honor and the memory of Buddy Dowdy. As many as favor that motion shall please rise. Thank you so much, Delegate Fowler, for those words. I know that was tough for you, and I know tough for a lot of us. I've had the honor and privilege of being friends with Buddy for many, many years. And when I, too, heard the tragic news, I actually went back to my cell phone to look at my text messages as recently as a week earlier. You're right, the world does need more Buddy Dowdies. When I think about his smile and I think about how serious he took his job, how he cared for all of us, but always, as you said, with a smile on his face, calming anybody, and yet the consummate professional. He was definitely a friend, someone I considered a friend as well, and I hear the emotion in your voice, and I know so many of us that he will be missed. He is missed already, and I'm sorry for your loss and all of us that consider Buddy Dowdy a friend, and certainly Colonel Pike and the entire Capitol Police. So thank you for those words, Delegate Fowler, and our thoughts and prayers are with Buddy Dowdy's family as well. Thank you so much. The delegate from Rockingham, Delegate Runyon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a motion.
Delegate Runyon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns in the memory of former Delegate Pete Geeson. I'd like to speak to the motion, Madam Speaker.
Delegate Runyon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Pete Geeson was a man of many titles. He was son to former Delegate Charlotte Pinky Geeson. He was a delegate for over 30 years in the 10th, 15th, and finally the 25th House District, all of which were anchored in Augusta County. A graduate of Yale, and then for good measure, a graduate of Harvard Business School, he was a Kiwanian, president and treasurer of the Augusta Steel Corporation, board member to many organizations, a lobbyist, a mentor to former Delegate Landis, as well as to myself, and a devoted Lutheran. Before his passing, Pete took on another title, Professor. Affectionately known as Professor Pete to the JMU political science students, his public service didn't end even after retirement. Pete was a true gentleman and a servant of the peoples of the Commonwealth. I kindly ask you that today we adjourn in his honor and memory of Pete Geeson. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Runyon. Delegate Runyon moves that when the House adjourned today, it adjourned the honor and the memory of former House Delegate Pete Geeson. As many as favor that motion shall please rise. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Geeson family. Thank you for sharing those kind words about our former House delegate. Thank you, Delegate Runyon. Madam Clerk.
Madam Speaker, I'll call the name of the one delegate I have not yet seen voting as present, Delegate Moorfield.
Madam Speaker, I vote aye, or present. I'm having trouble with my iPad. I apologize.
Delegate Moorfield is present.
Thank you, Delegate Moorfield. The clerk will please announce the next order of business.
Second morning hour order of business. The next order of business is the announcement of member requests to move legislation from any uncontested to regular calendar, and there are no such moves today.
The clerk will please announce the next order of business.
Third morning hour order of business. The next order of business is the announcement of requests by members for legislation to go by for the day, and I do not believe there are any such motions.
The clerk will please announce the next order of business.
Fourth morning hour order of business. The next order of business is recognition of member requests for points of personal privilege, and the Speaker requests members to use their request to speak buttons to be recognized.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Ayala.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Ayala, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, as we conclude our session's work, I reflect on the time in the House, or my time in the House, and how grateful I am to I have gotten to work with an incredible body of legislators over the past 4 years. I'll never forget the day I was elected to this body and took my oath of office and cast my first vote. I cried like a baby because it was historic, and it was a historic opportunity that I had to be a part of making lives better, to just truly making a difference. This will never be forgotten, nor will the friendships that I have made. You know who you are, and I love you for your friendships, your words of wisdom, and sometimes the stares that you've given me when maybe, possibly I did something that could have been done better. But all of that was out of love and hoping to make me a better legislator, and I thank you for that. In this body, we've made so much progress in history. We chose the first Jewish woman speaker, the first African-American majority leader, and our house's history. In addition to the many first Black women and men are chairing committees. Yes, historic, but yes, significantly impactful and inspirational. We built bridges in this body to make the much-needed progress for the Commonwealth. I've been a part of such amazing experiences. We expanded Medicaid. We diminished our digital divide. We've ratified the Equal Rights Amendment, putting gender equality into the Constitution. We've legalized marijuana. We're reforming our justice system. We're removing barriers from the ballot box, making voting accessible to every Virginian. We've implemented the G3 program to create jobs and provided affordable higher education opportunities for more than 36,000 Virginian residents. I'm a little nervous, as you can tell, because, this session or this year will be my last year of service. And to each of you, yes, even my friends across the aisle, thank you. Thank you for your friendships, your collaborative spirit, your wisdom, your commitment to serve our Commonwealth. I'm proud and grateful to be part, I promised I wasn't going to cry, to be part of such a body that comes to work every day to do and make a difference. And for that, I'm grateful. As I go on to my next venture, I'm sure we'll continue to work with you, many of you closely, and I look forward. So this is not goodbye, because to me, that's final. But this is just saying until next time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Delegate Ayala. And just want to say that we will certainly miss you. And thank you for being part of history. We know this is not goodbye. Does any member have any further announcements, introductions, or motions?
Madam Speaker?
Yes, the delegate from Alexandria, Leader Herring.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Leader Herring, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, I became caucus chair, I think, in 2015. And one of the things that I do is I recruit candidates to run. And I recruited Paula Ayala. There are other people that talked with her, but I took Paula to a Chinese restaurant, and over lunch and a long lunch, I talked about her potential and asked her to run. And I first saw her at a rally speak with such passion and such conviction about her role as a mother, about the importance of healthcare, and I watched the audience and how that resonated with people. So, and that's why I wanted to take her out to lunch and talk with her. She has been a true resource for the caucus. I had the honor of appointing her as a deputy whip, and she's been great and always cheerful to pitch in and help. And how I'm going to miss you. You are a team player, but I know great things lay ahead for you, no matter what it is. So I just, on behalf of the caucus, and you're such a joy, and thank you for your service. And Prince William is losing a great delegate. So. But I'm sure their loss will be someone's gain, and looking forward to seeing other things that you will accomplish in your future. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Leader Herring. The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Tran.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Tran, you have the floor.
Oh, my baby hair is sticking out. I just wanted to echo Leader Herring's comments and to just fully appreciate Delegate Hala Ayala. It has been an incredible privilege to be on this journey with you, to serve alongside you during these historic years, and also to be your roommate for 2 sessions. Hala, you bring incredible passion and energy to your work, to standing up for women, for families, for kids, for your own kids, and drawing upon your personal experiences and the empathy that you have for all Virginians who have faced vulnerable situations. You have taught us to serve with energy, with compassion and thoughtfulness, and I am so grateful that I have been able to serve alongside you. So thank you so much, Hala, for all you've done for Prince William County and for Virginia.
Thank you very much, Delegate Tran. The delegate from Clark, Delegate Goditis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Goditis, you have the floor.
I just wanted to chime in and say that Hala Ayala, as a delegate, has more passion and more humor and more energy than most of us. And Delegate Ayala, Labor and Commerce will never be the same, although I will laugh less and possibly take in more of what is being said without you next to me. And I want to say thank you for being part of our class of 2017. A lobbyist that I met with this past weekend said with great confidence that he felt that the class of 2017 was the most influential and significant and historic class of the last 100 years. And I grilled him on it, but he stuck to that story. And you, my dear delegate, are one of the bright lights of that class. And thank you for being with us, and I will not lose you.
Thank you so much, Delegate Goditis. The delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Gilbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm hesitant to do this since the button hasn't been pushed by the culprit to give his own speech, but I did want to take a minute to thank our colleague Delegate Nick Rush for his service to the people of Virginia and the 7th House District. We already know that our friend Delegate Cole is leaving. I had the opportunity to thank him for his service the last time we were here. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Delegate Rush, even though he appears reluctant to speak on his own behalf. Delegate Rush quickly became a leader in our caucus, Madam Speaker, as you know, and has been influential in a number of areas. Even in the minority, he's had a quiet hand in helping shape policy with the relationships he's developed. And I don't want to go on and on. We can do these things for a long time and talk about why we know and love people and the job they do here. I think it's certainly, none of us view this as ideal. The circumstances in which we say goodbye to somebody leaving the body here on the Zoom call. I would much rather, as we all would, I know, Madam Speaker, even you'd rather be in the chamber on a day like this to say goodbye to folks and wish them well. And I wanted to do that even though we're not there in the chamber. I wanted to wish Delegate Rush, my good friend, all luck and good fortune and good health and everything else that goes along with moving on into a new chapter of your life. And I know he's not done serving the people he represents. He's just going to be a part of the community in a different way. So thank you again to our retirees, Delegates Cole, Delegate Rush, and I thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Delegate Gilbert, and we certainly wish Delegate Rush the best, and we know we will see him around and moving forward onto his next chapter, but want to say thank you for his service as well. The delegate from Campbell, Delegate Ferris.
Madam Speaker, rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Ferris, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, I just wanted to take a moment to thank the delegates that are retiring and remind the body of the knowledge that we will be losing. The wealth of knowledge of all three of the delegates previously mentioned have all had influences on all of us, and we will really miss them. I know why all of them served, and I really appreciate their hard work in what they did to represent the people in their district, and I hope that we'll have them back to visit, not in this setting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate Ferris. The delegate from Alexandria, Leader Herring.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Leader Herring, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And again, on behalf of the caucus, I wish Delegate Rush all the success and happiness that his future can hold. Delegate Rush and I were seatmates for quite a long time. And I still recall looks that we would get from Speaker Howell because we probably had a little bit too much fun on the House floor. And it was a joy to sit by him, and we had just a lot of fun. But also on a personal note, one of the things that I did a few years ago was help expand the STEP program at George Mason University, and Delegate Rush was the chair of the Higher Education Subcommittee on Appropriations. And so I have to say to him publicly, thank you for that. And many of you know that bill meant a lot to me in my life. I would not have gotten to college without it. And because of that budget amendment, so many college students, so many people who come from distressed economic backgrounds or first-generation college students now have an opportunity to have an early start at George Mason University. And this is one of the beauties about serving in the General Assembly, is that there is often so much common ground that unfortunately it's not talked about, but where we help each other in our communities. And I just thank Delegate Rush and thank you so much for all the fun that we had as seatmates, and best of luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Herring. The delegate from Arlington, Delegate Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Lopez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to join my colleagues in thanking both our friends and colleagues, Delegate Rush and Delegate Ayala. Delegate Rush and I don't agree on much. We don't agree on a lot. But he and I were classmates together, class of 2012. We are. And the one thing that I can tell you is Nick Rush is incredibly honest, straightforward. He's an honorable person, and I also am incredibly blessed to have had numerous conversations with him on the floor, in private, in his office about matters of importance to the community, matters of importance to the Commonwealth, but also just to hear him tell a joke and to have those private moments together. He is a man of integrity and honor, and he always gives it to you straight. And so we are better for having him in the House of Delegates, and Virginia is a better place because he's been in the House of Delegates. And what can I say about mi hermana, Delegate Ayala? We would not have a Latino caucus without Elizabeth Guzman and Delegate Ayala. But she has, in her incredibly persuasive and vibrant, dynamic way, made change. We could not have done so many things that have helped new Americans and Latinos without her assistance, vision, guidance, and just everything about Hala has helped us be a better community, a better Commonwealth. And so you are both going to be missed. You are both treasured members of this body, and thank you. And honestly, on behalf of the hundreds of thousands of people who don't know you and need to know you and should be thanking you for your service, on behalf of all of us, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Lopez. The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Corey.
Thank you. I am going to repeat what Hala said. I promised I wouldn't cry, but I need to support the remarks that have been made on the floor about the companionship and ability for us to listen to each other regardless of our party affiliation, regardless of where we sit on the floor, and regardless of how outspoken we may be. Leader Herring spoke about the raucous corner of the Capitol where we sat, and the loud and rowdy Republicans that she and I were forced to put up with. It was a lot of fun, and we would never have developed the relationships across the aisle if we had not had the good fortune for sitting there with Delegate Rush and Delegate Fowler. And I do need to thank Delegate Rush for his support, especially of legislatively, but especially of the bill that I filed to allow incarcerated women to receive menstrual products at no cost upon request. He was instrumental in having that bill passed. It would not have happened without him. I am lousy at not crying. I'll miss Hala. My goodness, Delegate Hala, you have made dancing on the floor a customary thing to do. And clapping your hands whenever you're happy, again, that was the same raucous corner of the Capitol. So I thank you both for your support and your friendship, and I wish you success. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Corey. Members of the House, today we conclude the work of our 2021 session, and what we have accomplished over the past 3 months have been incredibly positive and will be long-lasting, will have a long-lasting impact on the lives of Virginians. We set out in January in the midst of a generational health and economic crisis to pass legislation that would keep Virginians healthy, protect families, and rebuild our economy better and fairer than it has ever been before. And in all 3 accounts, I believe we have met the moment. From passing eviction protections to keeping families in their homes, legislation to speed up our Commonwealth's vaccine rollout, which now ranks as one of the best in the country, to a historic jobs training program that will equip Virginians with the skills they need to prosper in the 21st century economy. We have done what our constituents elected us to do. As our Commonwealth continues to lead the nation in getting residents vaccinated, with 1/3 of Virginians having received at least 1 dose of the vaccine, I am hopeful that the days of our virtual sessions are behind us. Our work is far from finished. We must and we will continue to work diligently, tirelessly, to turn the corner on COVID-19 pandemic. With the passage of the American Rescue Plan, we will be working to distribute funding to keep our small businesses open and to support and strengthen critical services that all Virginians rely on. But let us take a moment to be proud of the precedent that we have set. In a time when every facet of our lives has been faced by historic challenges, this body and this government has not wavered in its resolve nor its ability to carry out the people's work. We have made Virginia proud. Now let the work continue. Pursuant to Article 4, Section 6 of the Constitution of Virginia, the purpose of this reconvened session is to consider governor's recommendations to bills that were passed during the 2021 Special Session 1. The Constitution prohibits the consideration of any other business. As the clerk mentioned earlier, the House will proceed as noted in the House Procedures for 2021 Reconvened Special Session 1 document she emailed to us all. The clerk will please call the calendar.
House calendar for April 7th, House bills with governor's recommendations. Page 1, House Bill 1800, an act to amend and reenact Chapter 1289 of the 2020 Acts of Assembly as amended by Chapter 56 of the 2020 Acts of Assembly, Special Session 1, which appropriated funds for the 2020-2022 biennium and provided a portion of revenues for the 2 years ending respectively on the 30th day of June 2021 and the 30th day of June 2022. Reported from Appropriations with amendments.
The delegate from Prince William, Chairman Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in House Bill 1800, the governor has submitted 18 recommendations, and we will proceed with each of them and ask that each of them be taken up individually. In House Bill, the first amendment, Amendment Number 1, is technical in nature, and the governor's recommendation is simply to move to transfer COVID-19 funds from into the general funds, and the government amendment increases the general fund revenues by $3.3 million in FY 2021 to reflect additional transfers to the general fund proposed in Amendment Number 15. And Madam Speaker, I ask that the governor's amendment be adopted.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted?
Aye.
The House will be at ease. The House will please come to order. Madam Clerk.
We're prepared to vote on amendment number 1.
The delegate from Prince William, Chairman Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, just to remind the body again, amendment number 1 is technical in nature, and it simply states that the governor's amendment increases the general fund resources by $3.3 million in FY 2021 to reflect additional transfers to the general fund proposed in amendment number 15. Madam Speaker, I ask that the governor's recommendation be adopted.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Madam Speaker, I'll call the names of those who I do not see voting yet. Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Guzman.
Aye.
Delegate Guzman votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye. Delegate Walker.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 93, nays 7, abstentions 0.
Ayes 93, nays 7, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 2.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, amendment number 2, it deals with third-party funding investigation of the Office of the Inspector General of the governor's action, provides $250,000 in general funds in the first year to conduct an independent third-party investigation of the Office of the State Inspector General's policies, procedures, and processes employed during the investigation of the Virginia Parole Board's handling of the Vincent Martin matter. Madam Speaker, I ask that the governor's recommendation be adopted.
The delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the amendment.
Delegate Gilbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam Speaker, I don't know what to call this so-called investigation, anything other than a whitewash. We were told that we would have a full investigation into the parole board matter. Madam Speaker, you and I both know that something is very rotten at the parole board. We know this because we got a full packet of information from a whistleblower about what is going on at the parole board. This is a state agency that is tasked primarily with ensuring public safety through their actions, through their decisions, through their policies and procedures and their following of the law. And it appears in many respects they didn't follow any of those things, or at least there's very strong evidence to suggest that the law, the Constitution, procedures, and policies in any number of areas were not followed. Somebody needs to find out if that is true. We have conflicting versions of that. The only person, to my knowledge, who has yet been held in any way accountable for anything is the person who brought this corruption to light, the whistleblower herself. That is not only absurd, it flies in the face of decency, of good government. You know, there is a reward system, Madam Speaker, that we have in the law for whistleblowers who come forward and uncover fraud, waste, and abuse in state government. Not only should this whistleblower not have been fired, she deserves a reward for doing this, because of all the state agencies that should have held this agency accountable, not only the agency itself and those within it, but in the administration, in the Attorney General's office, in the Inspector General's office, nobody has truly looked into what happened and revealed it to the public in a way that should give the public any confidence that anybody's doing their job with respect to the parole board and what goes on there. This investigation, this so-called investigation, does not investigate anything about the parole board at all. It investigates the Inspector General's office. And it does so in only one of these cases, the Vincent Martin case, the one that's had the highest profile. But there were numerous other murderers, heinous murderers, who were released from prison. In many of those instances where the law wasn't followed, where policy wasn't followed, where procedure wasn't followed, victims weren't notified, Commonwealth attorneys weren't notified, and a whole bunch of badness may have been going on, but we don't really know, and this certainly doesn't get to the bottom of it, Madam Speaker. This was a long-promised investigation. It only looks into one case, and it only looks into it in terms of what the Inspector General did, and not what the Parole Board did at all. It doesn't investigate the former chairman and whether she indeed released dozens of offenders, violent offenders, even murderers, from supervision unilaterally without any input from the board. It doesn't tell us who deleted or whether records were altered or deleted at the Parole Board. It doesn't tell us and investigate whether the 6 other cases that we know the Inspector General did reports in, whether proper procedure was followed in those cases, whether victims and prosecutors were properly notified. It doesn't investigate allegations which appear to be backed up by credible testimony that records that officials at the Parole Board asked employees to falsify documents. It doesn't investigate whether the Attorney General had a hand in minimizing or whitewashing these allegations, and how a 13-page report with many of those allegations in it turned into a 6-page report. It doesn't tell us any of those things. And many of the other questions we have about what went on, about who was responsible, about the extent to which laws and procedures and the Constitution was not followed. But it does allow the administration to say, hey, look, we had an investigation, just like we promised. This is not going to cut it, Madam Speaker. This amendment, again, is just a whitewash, and it is not really an investigation at all. It protects Governor McAuliffe. These were many of his hand-picked officials at the Parole Board who are alleged to be involved in this. It protects Governor Northam. It protects others in the administration. It protects the Attorney General. It does create potentially a scapegoat for everybody in the Inspector General, and I think the Inspector General deserves scrutiny as well. When you have an official tasked with upholding everything, with investigating improper behavior in our government, who's primarily, apparently, maybe even just worried about his own job, and maybe that's not on him. Maybe that's on us. Maybe the law needs to be changed. But unless we really know what happened at every level of this, we really won't know how to fix it. Again, Madam Speaker, the fact that the only person who's been punished, the only person who's been fired in this whole episode is the whistleblower herself is just appalling to me. This is the final act of a cover-up. It helps protect the majority party even from having to answer these questions. I hope the majority, I've heard little inklings that there are those in the majority party who want to dig further, but adopting this amendment only helps foster the idea that there's a cover-up afoot, and that those who are willing to vote for it are willing to participate in it. I will say this, Madam Speaker, I don't know what's going to happen this fall in the elections, but I can tell you this, that this whole caucus, the Republican caucus, is committed to using whatever power we have at our disposal if we gain the majority in November to look into this, because somebody needs to do it, and this doesn't do it. We were told that it would, and it doesn't. And I do think it's time that the appropriate people are held accountable for the very rotten culture that appears to be in place at an agency that's supposed to keep the public safe first and foremost. Madam Speaker, for those reasons and so many others, I would ask the body to reject this amendment, as it does nothing to get to the bottom of this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Gilbert. The delegate from Portsmouth, Delegate Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the amendment.
Delegate Scott, you have the floor.
I've been listening over and over throughout last session as well as today, and folks say they want an investigation, and that's exactly what we all want. We want an investigation into how we all got here, and that's what this investigation would provide. This amendment provides funding for an independent third-party investigation. It's not, we just heard that the big issue on this is politics. When you start to talk about elections and you start talking about former Governor Terry McAuliffe and others, now we know what the real issue is. It's about politics, pure and simple, and it's not about necessarily protecting the public. We know that the folks who speak on this issue, they are diametrically, in their soul, they're opposed to parole. They're opposed to second chances. They're opposed to giving people an opportunity to move on after they have been determined by a third-party evaluation of folks who are tasked with this issue to determine whether they're worthy to be released back into society and the safety and the public is protected. What I didn't hear is that any one of these people who's been released has done anything to commit any crime. Nothing. So we know that the real issue is about politics. This amendment provides a clear directive and a timeline. So we'll know when we come back. We know that we may have to come back in June. We'll have some information. We'll have some decisions, and we know at the directive timeline to get the facts in front of the leaders of both parties. Take the politics out of everybody will know, and all Virginians will know after this presentation and this investigation happens. On June 15th, when Democratic and Republican leadership get this report, we'll either close the matter on this issue, or we'll receive information upon which we can act. And at that point, not any sooner and not any later, all of us will have the information that we desire. We know that this is not about a whitewash. This is about getting the information that we need so we can make better decisions. That is what the Senate asked for. That is what the House has asked for. And now, this is like the dog that chases the car. Now you got the tire and you don't know what to do with it. We're giving you what you asked for, an investigation. So this investigation protects the integrity of this thing and takes the influence of politics out of it. It's not about politicians looking to score points or make some headlines, because we know that this has been used that way. This amendment creates a fair, thorough, and independent framework to get answers for Virginians. And that's what we all want. We talked about this last session. We talked about the OSIG investigation that had already been completed. And in that OSIG investigation, believe it or not, there were some findings. And in those findings, there were some issues around reporting. There were some issues around notifications of these families, Commonwealth attorneys. And you know what we did? We introduced the bill. It was a governor's bill, and I carried it. And that bill passed this House 100-0. Sorry, you already voted to fix what you're still complaining about. Any issue regarding potential lack of transparency or breaking a protocol, we've handled part of it, but the rest of it, we will take care of it. And we did not start using this term whistleblower until very lately. And I want to make sure that we know that that's a technical term, and you just don't get to say that's what it is because you say it a million times doesn't make it true. We're going to find out if that's true as we move forward. So let's be honest here about everything. Our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, they're unconcerned about this investigation. They are concerned about making this an election issue. They've told you that bluntly every time. This is their election issue. That's why we want to fix it and get it right. Not because of the politics, but because it's the right thing to do to not only give people second chances and not hurt this process, but also provide the framework to know what we need to do moving forward to get things right. That's why they are opposing this effort. All politics. It's not about getting things right. It's not about creating an atmosphere where we can get a fair and thorough and independent investigation done by professionals with no skin in the game except for the truth, not about politics. So if you want to get to the bottom of this and you don't want to wait and drag it out to November for an election issue, you vote for this budget amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Scott. Appreciate that. The delegate from Fauquier, Delegate Webert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, speaking to the amendment.
Delegate Webert, you have the floor.
I'll just make this very brief, at least I believe so. I would humbly disagree with Delegate Scott. I think the matter of this amendment is actually the subject matter of who is going to be investigated. The gentleman said that the board had, the OSIG report had issues. I think those issues need to be continued to be investigated. I think that's the biggest issue that many people see in regards to this conundrum that we're in regards to the parole board. Some of the folks that weren't notified needed to be notified. There were all kinds of things that went wrong, and we need to get to the bottom of that. I believe that Delegate Gilbert feels that investigating the Inspector General should also be done, but we need to expand it further, and we need to do the parole board too. Because while the gentleman said that this is political. It is. We administer policy. Therefore, we become political. And it becomes a matter of what the policy that we're going to put forward. So I would just share those concerns and also share that, I'm aligned with Delegate Gilbert in that we need to also investigate the parole board in this matter.
Thank you, Delegate Weber. The delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Levine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the amendment.
Delegate Levine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The allegations in the leaked initial report that were not found in the final report are serious allegations, and we should know why they weren't in the final report. It's a fair question. Now, just because they're allegations don't mean that those allegations are true, but the allegations are serious. I reached out to Rita Davis, the counsel for the governor, to find the scope of the investigation, and she sent me a very detailed response that I would like to read and put on the record so that no one has any doubts as to what this investigation will entail, and I will read it now. Quote, "The intent of the budget language is to authorize an independent third-party investigator to evaluate whether the Office of the State Inspector General's July 28, 2020 final report regarding the Vincent Martin matter resulted from the office's normal practices, policies, and procedures, or undue political influence. The investigators should determine the reasons the office omitted some findings and conclusions from its July 28, 2020 report. Specifically, the investigator should determine A, whether the office substantiated the omitted allegations, and B, whether the omission of those allegations was the result of political pressure on the office by persons in government. In doing so, the investigation should scrutinize every officer, official, employee, and agency involved in any way, from the office's receipt of the initial complaint to its completion of July 28, 2020 final report. It is expected that any member of Virginia's government involved in the office's preparation, completion, and issuance of its final report on July 28, 2020 cooperate in the third-party investigation to the fullest extent of the law, and that any refusal to do so appear in the final investigative report. The third-party investigator will issue its report no later than June 15, 2021, before the General Assembly's anticipated special session in June. The Office of the Governor and the General Assembly will review the findings and any recommendations and take any additional necessary action." Unquote. What I found in this statement that I find very good and that I think should satisfy the gentleman from Shenandoah and the gentleman from Fauquier is they're going to look and see whether the office substantiated the omitted allegations. Was there anything there? Did anyone do anything wrong? This report has been leaked, and then it was in the final report. So we're going to find out, was there a there? We're going to look and see whether there's any substantiation whatsoever. And if there is, we'll know about it. The report gets released not only to the Speaker of the House, but to the Minority Leader. And I have no doubt that if there is a there, if the substantial, severe allegations are true, consequences will happen. We will find out in this investigation if these allegations are substantiated or not. We'll also find out in this investigation whether or not political pressure was put on the Office of Inspector General to change the report. That's been alleged too. And everyone's going to be asked that question. Everyone throughout the government's going to be asked that question. Anyone that refuses to participate, they're going to be called out. This is not a whitewash. This report, it's clear from the scope of the investigation, will investigate the Vincent Martin matter, will investigate whether these allegations are substantiated, whether the Office of the Inspector General did anything wrong, and if they're not substantiated, and the report comes back, and we find out that the allegations, there's no there, that there was reasons why it was excluded, then I would hope that members of the opposing party will come and say, look, hey, you had an investigation, there's no there. But we're going to find out, and I'll tell you this, as a member of the majority party, if the allegations are substantiated, then I think people have to suffer consequences. But this report will find it out. And so whether you think the allegations are true or not, you should support this amendment so we can look into them and find out what happened. And Madam Speaker, I intend to vote for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Levine. The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the amendment.
Delegate Sullivan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, the delegate from Portsmouth, the delegate from Alexandria, and frankly, to a certain extent, the delegate from Shenandoah are all right. These claims are very serious, and Virginians deserve answers. And that's why I support this amendment, Madam Speaker. It puts professional, independent investigators on the job to get those answers, and not politicians. Frankly, I'm surprised there's even a debate on this. I thought this would be a bipartisan vote. Many members of the General Assembly, including members of the minority, have been calling for an investigation, and here is the opportunity. But unfortunately, I suppose predictably, many have decided to turn this into a way to try to score points ahead of November's elections. But Virginians deserve better than that. In my view, Madam Speaker, there are three very simple questions each of us needs to consider before voting on this amendment. First, does it provide for funding to hire an independent investigator with no ties to the subjects of the investigation? The answer is that it does. Second, does it protect this investigation from partisan influence? The answer is that it does. And third, does it provide a definitive timeline to either resolve the matter or allow us to take further action if necessary? And the answer to that question is that it does. Madam Speaker, this amendment satisfies all three of those questions. Those are the standards that any independent investigation should meet. It is important that we get to the bottom of what happened, and I encourage all my colleagues to vote yes on this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Chairman Sullivan. The delegate from Arlington, Delegate Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have a motion.
Delegate Lopez.
Madam Speaker, I move the pending question.
Delegate Lopez moves the pending question. As many as favor that motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the question. The question is called. Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Brewer. Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Converse Fowler. Delegate Freitas.
Delegate Freitas votes nay.
Delegate Freitas votes nay. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 55, nays 45, abstentions 0.
Ayes 55, nays 45, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 3.
The delegate from Prince William, Chairman Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, amendment number 3 is technical in nature. It's simply adjust election language. The recommendation by the governor, the budget language stipulates that policies apply to special elections or primaries held before July 1, 2021. The amendment adds general elections to the list of elections typed included in the budget language. Madam Speaker, I ask that the governor's recommendation be adopted.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Avoli. Delegate Brewer. Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Freitas. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 55, nays 43, abstentions 0.
Ayes 55, nays 43, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 4.
The delegate from Prince William, Chairman Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Amendment number 4 adds positions to address findings from the disparity study. The disparity study was done by the Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. The governor's action proposes $598,403 in general funds in the second year and 5 positions for the Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity to start implementing the recommendations of the 2020 disparity study. Madam Speaker, I ask that the governor's recommendation be adopted.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Avoli. Delegate Brewer. Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Freitas. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 55, nays 44, abstentions 0.
Ayes 55, nays 44, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 5.
The delegate from Prince William, Chairman Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Amendment number 5 extends the superintendent's waiver language. The governor's amendment provides a 1-year extension to authorization provided to the superintendent of public instructions to grant temporary flexibility or waivers of certain deadlines and requirements that cannot be met due to the state of emergency or school closures resulting from COVID-19. Madam Speaker, I ask that the governor's recommendation be adopted.
The delegate from Fauquier, Delegate Weber.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Would the delegate yield for a question?
Will the delegate yield?
Madam Speaker, I yield.
The delegate yields. Delegate Weber, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would ask the gentleman, I'm concerned about the extension of authority that would possibly undermine the work that was done on SB 1303. So I guess my question is, would this amendment give the superintendent the ability to grant waivers to Senate Bill 1303?
Chairman Torian.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I yield to the gentleman from Richmond, Delegate Van Valkenburg.
Delegate from Richmond, Delegate Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Delegate Weber, members of the body, the short answer is no. It would not. It would not in any way interact with 1303 that we passed this year. The way you want to think about this bill is that it's providing kind of flexibility that may be needed as we kind of go into a new school year when you're thinking about kids that will still have the option to be virtual and the flexibility needed there. When you think about kind of learning loss programs that are going to be needed and that might need to build in some flexibility where we have kind of requirements around class size and VPI, and so it's going to allow for flexibility to kind of have a more robust programming. It's kind of some flexibility around graduation requirements as it relates to things like community service, if we can't have the same kind of standards that are set under the code. And so it does not interact with 1303. It is these kind of other provisions that we may need a little bit more flexibility for a little bit longer period of time.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Delegate Weber.
Would the gentleman yield for...
Will the delegate yield?
Yeah, I yield, Madam
Delegate
Speaker.
Van Valkenburg. Yeah. Delegate Weber, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, so I would kind of ask the gentleman, so in his opinion, the budget amendment only deals with very specific kind of requirements that schools are under, not necessarily the amount of days, et cetera, that SB 1303 was meant to cover?
Correct.
Delegate Van Valkenburg.
Sorry. Madam Speaker, Delegate Weber, correct.
I thank the gentleman.
Thank you, Delegate Weber. Thank you. Shall the governor's recommendation be agreed to? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Brewer. Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 59, nays 41, abstentions 0.
Ayes 59, nays 41, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 6.
The delegate from Prince William, Chairman Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Amendment number 6 is technical in nature. It simply reflects hospital provision requirements associated with HB 2162. The amendment strikes the budget language in HB 1800 that was adopted during the 2020 Special Session 1 to ensure there is no conflict with HB 2162. Madam Speaker, I ask that the governor's recommendation be adopted.
Shall the governor's recommendation be agreed to? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Coiner.
Delegate Coiner votes aye.
Delegate Coiner votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 99, nays 6, abstentions 0.
Ayes 99, nays 0, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 7.
The delegate from Prince William, Chairman Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Amendment number 7 is technical in nature. It authorizes the appropriation of the Federal American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 Medicaid revenue. The governor's action adds language to clarify that the Director of the Department of Planning and Budget has the authority to appropriate additional federal Medicaid revenue for the current services provided through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Additionally, the federal funds are available beginning on April 1, 2021, and the language would allow for the funds to be received without interruption. The proposed language also prohibits the expansion of Medicaid programs of services unless specifically authorized by the General Assembly, and it further adds any state funds offset by the added federal revenue will remain unspent until reauthorized and appropriated by the General Assembly. Madam Speaker, I ask that the governor's recommendation be adopted.
Shall the governor's recommendation be agreed to? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Brewer. Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Kilgore has voted. Delegate Rasool has voted. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 80, nays 20, abstentions 0.
Ayes 80, nays 20, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 8.
The delegate from Prince William, Chairman Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Amendment number 8 expands use of federal funds to be used for child care services. The governor's actions adds language allowing the federal funds to be used for a broader array of child care services than those laid out in the language adopted by the General Assembly. Madam Speaker, I ask that the governor's recommendation be adopted.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Mugler. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 94, nays 6, abstentions 0.
Ayes 94, nays 6, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 9.
The delegate from Prince William, Chairman Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Amendment number 9 is technical in nature. It corrects non-general fund sources for school-age child care grants. The governor's action modifies language to provide additional flexibility in the source of non-general funds for the school-age child care grants by changing it from federal coronavirus relief funds to federal child care development block grant funds provided in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Both the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan of 2021 provided additional CCDBG funds that can be used for this purpose. And Madam Speaker, I ask that the governor's recommendation be adopted.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Bell has voted. Delegate Brewer. Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 99, nays 1, abstentions 0.
Ayes 99, nays 1, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 10.
The delegate from Prince William, Chairman Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Amendment number 10 provides funding to assist the Chickahominy Tribe land acquisition. The governor proposes an additional $3.5 million of general fund money to be provided as a standalone appropriations to assist the Chickahominy Tribe in their procurement. The $10 million appropriation for VLCF will remain unchanged. This is identical to the approach taken by the House when it adopted its versions of the budget during the 2021 Special Session 1. And Madam Speaker, I ask that the governor's recommendation be adopted.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Avoli. Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Converse Fowler. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 75, nays 25, abstentions 0.
Ayes 75, nays 25, abstention 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 11.
The delegate from Fairfax, Chairman Sickles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of the body. Amendment number 11 is the governor's amendment to clarify that the requirements in HB 5049 that law enforcement agencies receive a waiver to use .50 caliber firearms applies only to rifles. Without this language, the Criminal Justice Services Board would be required to grant waivers for a host of other firearms not intended to be regulated under the bill, such as 12-gauge shotguns. So I would urge the body to adopt the governor's recommendation.
Shall the governor's recommendation be agreed to? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Ferris has voted. Delegate Freitas. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye. Delegate Williams Graves.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 98, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 98, nays 0, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 12.
The delegate from Fairfax, Chairman Sickles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of the body. Governor's amendment provides $1 million in FY22 for the Department of State Police to begin providing drug recognition expert training. This is consistent with or needed because he has further amendments to bills, House Bill 2312 and Senate Bill 1406 concerning legalization of marijuana that we'll be considering later. And so this proposed budget amendment requires the state police to just start providing this needed training now to both state and local agencies. So I would urge the body to support the governor's amendment.
The delegate from Rockingham, Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the delegate yield for a question?
Will the delegate yield?
I will yield, and if it's a question I can't answer, there's a lot of people here that might be able to help me out.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Chairman Sickles. Delegate Wilt, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd ask the delegate, so help me understand, I would have guessed that law enforcement, state police, already have techniques, training to recognize drivers that are impaired. So my question is, why do we need this amendment?
Chairman Sickles.
Madam Speaker, I'm not sure I agree with the gentleman's stipulation, and I do think since we are going to legalize this, that we need to make sure we know what we're doing, and our law enforcement officers need this training. And so it's as simple as that. I think that there probably is training going on now, but the governor and the state police believe they need more resources to tackle this problem immediately.
Madam Speaker,
Thank you.
follow-up question?
Yes, Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would ask the delegate, and on that note, again, I'm a little confused about how all this works. So we're talking about, even in the description, it talks about, effective detection and enforcement for driving under the influence of drugs. And so my question is the enforcement part. So are there particular levels of someone being under the influence? So how is state police, how is law enforcement, how are they going to enforce it? And what exactly are they going to enforce?
Delegate Wilt, I think I'll take prerogative and call on the leader whose bill this is. Leader Herring.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I will answer, I think, both questions. Hopefully this will provide some light. So first of all, the marijuana legislation and detection of, our DUI laws have not changed, which is correct, as Delegate Will, sort of intimates. But it does provide, the bill also provides, and we recognize that we have passed prohibition of officers from stopping someone based solely on the odor of marijuana. So traditionally, the drug recognition officer basically will not change the way that DUI cases are handled, but this appropriation will better equip officers to accurately recognize individuals who are driving while high. So the marijuana is different than alcohol because there's no objective test to determine whether a driver is high on THC. So this will help fund the drug recognition expert who is a specially trained law enforcement officer who may be called to a scene when a driver is suspected to be impaired, particularly of an on-scene breathalyzer test comes back 0. And in the marijuana legislation, it includes sort of an evaluation. It's a 12-step evaluation process to determine whether or not the suspect is impaired, and so whether impairment relates to drugs or a medical condition, and what category or combination of categories of drugs are likely to cause the impairment. And I will also note other states that have legalized simple possession of marijuana have increased the number of DREs. So as a public safety measure, I think it's the correct thing to do. And so I ask members to support the governor's amendment.
Thank you, Leader Herring. The delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the amendment.
Delegate Gilbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear. This amendment is the administration acknowledging that because of the legalization bill that we're going to take up again today, additional Virginians are going to be put at risk on the roads because of people driving impaired because they are high on marijuana. And I think the public should take note that although obviously I want to make sure we are holding those people accountable, this amendment is the acknowledgement that that is what is going to be a natural consequence of that bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Gilbert. The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, speaking to the amendment.
Delegate Mullen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm a little shocked that this is political in nature at all. This is the equivalent of training officers to be able to do a preliminary breath test. I don't understand. We have less than 24 drug recognition experts here in Virginia right now. We should have hundreds. We should know when somebody is high on something other than alcohol. And the science isn't there except for the drug recognition experts. I've worked with individuals who have this training for the last 4 years. And it's excellent training. It takes months to be able to learn to recognize the signs of someone being high on a narcotic. And everyone here should be ready and prepared to make sure that we are not having people impaired on the roadside. And I have no idea why someone would be against law enforcement being able to be trained to recognize that. I think this is mostly just a political statement at this point, and I would hope that we would all be able to support this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Actually, there's many people in line here, actually. The next person is Delegate from Campbell, Delegate Ferris.
Sure.
Delegate from Campbell, Delegate Ferris. Your light is on.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I certainly can.
Madam Speaker, as a delegate from Newport News just said, this is something that's very important, and this could take months. I really wonder, why are we talking about legislation, about amendments to the budget for legislation we have not passed yet? Should we not wait to see if this legislation passes before we fund something? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Ferris. The delegate from Lunenburg, Delegate Wright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to speak to this amendment, please.
You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm opposed not only to this amendment number 12, but also, and I won't repeat myself later, also the other budget amendments pertaining to marijuana. I've given a lot of thought to this issue, and I can't see where anything good is going to come out of it for the people of Virginia. We're more or less given a check to people who want to start taking marijuana, using marijuana. We're telling the people who haven't done it, perhaps you should have done it before. We need to stand strong against things that are not right. And there's just no reason whatsoever that anyone can say that marijuana is, except for medicinal purposes, is good for you. And I think that this is sending the wrong message to our children. It's sending the wrong message to people who have fought hard when maybe their peers were taking drugs. And everyone, I think, will admit that marijuana can be a gateway drug to even worse drugs. We look at other states and we can see that's exactly what has happened. We're asking for an epidemic, a worse epidemic of drugs than we currently have. So I think this is something that when we go to church on Sunday or whatever day we go and we think about the blessings the Lord has given us, this wonderful state, I think we've got a responsibility to try to take care of it. And this is only going to bring it down. The use of marijuana will promote nothing but harm. And some of these amendments are already admitting that in advance. You're recognizing the problems that we're creating. So for that reason, I'll be voting against it. I encourage my colleagues to do the same thing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Wright. The delegate from Richmond City, Delegate McQuinn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise with a motion.
Delegate McQuinn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move the pending question.
All those in favor of Delegate McQuinn's motion for the pending question shall say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
The question is called. Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Bourne. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 91, nays 8, abstentions 1.
Ayes 91, nays 8, abstentions 1. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 13.
The delegate from Fairfax, Chairman Sickles.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of the House. This amendment provides a limited exclusion for the provisions of the code related to the Line of Duty Act, which states that disabled individuals shall lose their health insurance coverage if they earn income in an amount equal or greater to the income they received at the time of their disability. That's the policy. This legislation was drafted for one individual as a matter of equity. It has been, if it had been determined that his disability took place in February of 2006, he would have been grandfathered into the program and not been subject to the new means testing provision. And so this is about one person, and I would move that the body adopt the governor's recommendation.
The delegate from Lunenburg, Delegate Wright. Delegate Wright, you had your light on?
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, I didn't intend to.
Oh, no problem. Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Aird has voted. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 14.
The delegate from Fairfax, Chairman
Thank
Sickles.
you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This is another provision providing money for the marijuana implementation. It's $1 million for the provision of evidence-based marijuana prevention and education campaigns and education programs. So I hope people will support this because we may later be able to adopt the governor's amendment to HB 2312 and Senate Bill 1406. And we will need these education programs put into place. And I would urge the adoption of the amendment number 14.
The delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
Madam Speaker, will the delegate from Fairfax or maybe the delegate from Alexandria yield for a question? I don't know who wants to take it.
Will the delegate from Alexandria,
I yield to the
Leader Herring?
Smart.
Yes, I yield.
Leader Herring yields. Delegate Gilbert.
Madam Speaker, this appears to be money to tell young people that marijuana is bad and you shouldn't use it. Could the delegate reconcile what appear to be the two contradictory public policy initiatives we're undertaking here today?
Leader Herring.
Madam Speaker, I would just respond to the delegate. I am not sure what he is referring to as contradicting.
We're legalizing it, Madam Speaker, apparently, and that it's also at the same time people need to be taught that it's bad for them. That's my question.
Leader Herring.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I would respond to the delegate that I do not see them as contradictory. I think that they go hand in hand. There is education for children about drugs. This will enhance the education. I anticipate that with the early implementation date, should we pass it today, for simple possession, this will allow the administration to speed up some education programs and outreach. So I think it is consistent. And if you oppose the legalization of simple possession, I would urge you to still adopt this budget amendment, because this is about education and prevention for abuse. We've often taken votes in this chamber, at least the 12 years I've been here. Alcohol is dangerous and can have some bad health effects, but we still will fund education programs and prevention programs. So if if there is concern, I would think that would be even more reason one would support this budget amendment.
Thank you, Leader Herring. The delegate from Albemarle, Delegate Bell.
Madam Speaker, this is a budget question, so I would ask the gentleman from Fairfax to rise for a question, please.
Will the delegate from Fairfax yield?
Yield.
Yes, he does. Delegate
Thank
Bell.
you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask the gentleman, this and the previous budget amendments, if they are passed, could the gentleman tell us when they will go into effect? I don't know if these take place immediately.
They will go into effect.
Thank you.
No, I mean, most of these are amendments go into effect on in the budget on the signature of the governor. On the signature, unlike regular legislation that typically, without an emergency clause, goes into effect on July 1.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The delegate. Thank you. The delegate from Fauquier, Delegate Weber.
And yes, would Delegate Herring yield for a question?
I yield.
Delegate yield. Delegate yields.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would ask the delegate, so essentially, if I remember correctly, the piece of legislation that you carried during session had many of these programs that would be implemented upon the collection of the tax and then fund it that way. So are we doing this simply, are we utilizing general fund dollars currently to get ahead of that, and because the governor has, moved forward the date of legalization?
I would answer the delegate. Madam Speaker, I would answer the delegate yes.
I thank the delegate.
Thank you.
Thank you. The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, speaking to the amendment.
Delegate Mullen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, at this point, I don't understand why we shouldn't be supportive of this. There are lots of things that we don't allow children to be able to do that we allow adults to do. Smoking cigarettes, watching adult movies, being allowed to buy alcohol. The law separates children from adults. And what we want to do is be able to have science-based, evidence-based education. We are using models that we've seen from states like Colorado and others who have been able to give evidence-based education about the use of illegal narcotics or, hopefully, legal substances that can affect people, like alcohol or cigarettes or caffeine or marijuana. And so, the idea that we are somehow going to be able to demonize one substance and not the other is a little anachronistic. I would say to this body, I would hope that we would all be able to support this ongoing education that is science-based, that's evidence-based, that is in the schools, that is outside for the public as a whole, and I think is incredibly important for public safety and for education generally. This is a great amendment. I thank the governor and Leader Herring for being able to put it forward, and I would hope everyone would support it.
Thank you, Delegate Mullen. The delegate from Arlington, Delegate Sullivan.
Madam Speaker, I have a motion.
Delegate Sullivan.
I move the pending question.
All those in favor of Delegate Sullivan's motion to call a pending question shall say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, the question is called. Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Edmonds. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Edmonds votes aye.
Delegate Edmonds votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 98, nays 2, abstentions 0.
Ayes 98, nays 2, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 15.
The delegate from Fairfax, Chairman Stickles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a purely technical amendment to sort out non-general funds from general funds to get them in the right category as a priority. We try to use the non-general funds wherever we can in place of general funds because they're so precious and we can use them for more things. So that's what this amendment does, lines up things in the right category with regard to the COVID-19 relief funds. So I would urge the body to support this technical amendment.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Delaney. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstention 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 16.
The delegate from Fairfax, Chairman Sickles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The General Assembly, we adopted language requiring corporations that are members of a unitary business to file an informational report with the Department of Taxation for the unitary combined group containing the unitary combined net income of the group. What the governor's technical amendment does is changes the report deadline from June 1 to July 1, 2021. And so I urge the body to adopt this technical amendment.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Aird has voted. Delegate Brewer. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 17.
The delegate from Fairfax, Chairman Sickles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is another amendment that's technical in nature. It has to do with liability insurance coverage between our agency, the Commonwealth, and the United States Department of Agriculture. It allows the amendment would ensure that liability insurance policy options include the pool insurance program managed by our Division of Risk Management within the Treasury Department, or a separate policy procured by the Department or Division of Risk Management. It just adds options for liability coverage for entities using USDA land. And so I would ask the body to approve the amendment so that our rural areas and our open lands can be properly protected and have proper liability insurance.
Shall the governor's
Urge the
recommendation?
adoption of amendment number 17.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Brewer has voted. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Carter. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Amendment number 18.
The delegate from Fairfax, Chairman Sickles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. During our 2020 special session 1, we adopted a bill that exempted up to $1,200 of economic relief payments from the creditor process based on the size of the relief payments made available under the CARES Act. This technical amendment strikes the language limiting the exemption to $1,200 to reflect the additional payments that were made under the American Rescue Plan. And so I would urge the body to adopt this technical amendment.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Delaney. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring
Delaney votes aye.
Aye.
Delegate Delaney votes aye.
Delegate Delaney votes aye. Delegate Mugler. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Moving to page 11 of the calendar, House Bill 1855, an act to amend and reenact sections 2.2, 204, and several other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy.
Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking of the amendment.
Delegate Sullivan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, the governor's amendment merely corrects a drafting error. DLA noticed upon reviewing the bill that an existing subsection in the code that we were working on was inadvertently left out of the legislation. So this simply puts it back in. Let me emphasize, the amendment does not add any new language to the code that's not already there. I move adoption of the recommendation and urge a yes vote.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Jenkins. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 64, nays 35, abstentions 0.
Ayes 64, nays 35, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Page 12 of the calendar, House Bill 1890, an act to amend and reenact sections 24.2105 and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to elections, prohibited discrimination in voting and elections administration, required process for enacting certain covered practices, civil causes of action, penalties.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Price.
Yes, Madam Speaker, the governor has offered technical amendments to House Bill 1890 that change covered jurisdiction to locality in 3 instances to make sure it is clear that these provisions apply to all Virginia localities. I move adoption of the amendments and urge you to vote yes.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Adams, DM, has voted. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Hayes has voted. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Robinson has voted. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 55, nays 45, abstentions 0.
Ayes 55, nays 45, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Page 12, House Bill 1899, an act to amend and reenact sections 58.1, 433.1, 58.1, 439.2, and 58.1, 2626.1 of the Code of Virginia relating to sunset of coal tax credits.
The delegate from Fairfax, Chairwoman Watts.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move to pass by the governor's recommended amendment to HB 1899. Speaking to the motion.
Chairwoman Watts, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The purpose of the proposed amendment is an attempt to bind future budget decisions, even though established legal precedent is clear that this cannot be done. Starting the amendment off using the word intent does not change this legal reality. Therefore, the motion to pass by the amendment clear, is not, and I want to make this clear, made to in any way reject the possibility that such funding could be appropriated to expand course offerings at UVA-wise. It simply reflects that this is a matter for future budget deliberations. It can't be dictated ahead of time. Please note also that nothing in the proposed amendment involves current funding. Even if the amendment was passed, it would have absolutely no effect. The only thing that would be accomplished is to set bad precedent, which is open to legal challenges should such precedent be used to justify further such language in the future. I hope you will support the motion to pass by, and let's let the well-crafted existing third enactment clause in HB 1899 to bring all regional stakeholders and considerations together at the table over the months ahead and make a broad-based report. This effort has in fact again been endorsed by resolutions from 4 of the 5 coal-producing counties to reject the proposed amendment before us and work on our existing enactment clause 3. The governor in fact will have the benefit of that much broader-based work in crafting his upcoming proposed executive budget that he will put before us in December as to what should be funded in FY23 and FY24. And that is the context that will properly provide full legislative considerations. Again, I hope it will be the pleasure of the body to pass by the proposed amendment to HB 1899.
Chairwoman Watts moves to pass by the amendment to HB 1899. As many as favor that motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the amendment to HB 1899 is passed by.
Page 13 of the calendar, House Bill 1936, an act to amend and reenact Section 18.258 of the Code of Virginia relating to robbery penalties.
The delegate from Fairfax, Chairwoman Watts.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move the proposed amendment. Speaking to the motion.
Chairwoman Watts, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To remind the body, HB 1936 established degrees of robbery matching what we do in virtually every other criminal offense that would reflect the degree of serious bodily injury, whether or not there was a use of a firearm or other deadly weapon. And in passing 1936, setting out these 4 degrees, the amendment before us recognizes that with these 4 degrees of robbery, that it is no longer appropriate to treat the lesser degrees where there was no firearm involved, no bodily injury, as mandatory, requiring a mandatory hearing by the juvenile court in determining whether someone over age 16 would be tried as an adult. And again, the amendment keeps all the current provisions on the more serious categories of robbery, allowing the appropriate review by the juvenile court for trial as an adult, as well as the motion of the Commonwealth Attorney. I hope it will be the pleasure of the body to adopt the amendment regarding Class 5 and Class 6 degrees of robbery.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Brewer has voted. Delegate Campbell, JL. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 55, nays 44, abstentions 0.
Ayes 55, nays 44, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
House Bill 1962, an act to amend and reenact Section 16.1, 281, 16.1, 283, 63.2, 906, and 63.2, 910.2 of the Code of Virginia relating to foster care, termination of parental rights, relatives, and fictive kin.
The delegate from Clark, Delegate Goditis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, House Bill 1962 is the one that requires that relatives and fictive kin be included in the development of a foster care plan. And the governor's amendment just adds language to make this bill consistent with SB 1328 from Senator Mason. That bill passed after we passed this legislation, and his bill creates the state-funded kinship government assistance program, KINGAP, the state-funded KINGAP. So this adds that funding source to the bill, and I hope that we will accept the governor's amendment.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Askew. Delegate Campbell, JL. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Hope. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 98, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 98, nays 0, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is adopted.
House Bill 1992, an act to amend and reenact Sections 18.2, 308.09, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to purchase, possession, or transportation of firearms following conviction for assault and battery of a family or household member. Penalties.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the proposed amendment.
Delegate Murphy, we can't hear you, actually.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, just a little soft, but we can.
I have to learn how to yell. This is the governor's amendment. First of all, the bill is a bill that prohibits a person who's been convicted of assault and battery of a family or household member from purchasing, possessing, or transporting a firearm for a period of 3 years. The governor's amendment does two things. It extends the prohibition period from 3 to 5 years, and it expands the definition of family or household member to those who live together but are not married, and includes a cohabiting individual and a child of either person, whether it is the cohabiter or the person who lives there. We know that preventing domestic abusers from owning or purchasing guns is associated with a reduction in intimate partner homicide, and I move the adoption of the governor's recommendation.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Brewer has voted. Delegate Campbell, JL. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate McQuinn. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay. Delegate Wampler.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 54, nays 45, abstentions 0.
Ayes 54, nays 45, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Page 14 of the calendar, House Bill 1999, an act to amend and reenact Section 58.1.112 of the Code of Virginia relating to authorizing tax commissioner to waive accrual of interest in the event that the governor declares a state of emergency.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Murphy.
Madam Speaker, House Bill 1999 authorizes the tax commissioner to waive interest for taxpayers for whom they find that imposing interest has caused or would cause undue hardship during a natural disaster or for another reason. The bill allows the tax commissioner to grant such a waiver only if the governor declares a state of emergency in the Commonwealth with respect to such national disaster. So the amendment, the governor's amendment, merely allows the Department of Taxation to begin issuing waivers sooner than July 1st, 2021. He amended the bill to propose that this emergency clause on the bill take place. It's effective on an enactment of the bill. I ask that you adopt the governor's recommendation.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate LaRock. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
House Bill 2031, an act to amend the Code of Virginia by adding in Article 1 of Chapter 17 of Title 15.2, a section numbered 15.2, 1723.2, and by adding a section numbered 23.1, 815.1, relating to facial recognition technology, authorization of use by local law enforcement agencies and public institutions of higher education.
The delegate from Petersburg, Delegate Aird.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, House Bill 2031 is has an amendment by the governor that is technical in nature. It is merely language that this body has already agreed upon being moved to a different paragraph regarding the exemption of commercial airports. And so I would ask that we accept and adopt the governor's recommendation.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Aird.
Aye.
Delegate Aird votes aye. Delegate Bell. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 99, nays 1, abstentions 0.
Ayes 99, nays 1, abstention 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Page 15, House Bill 2038, an act to amend and reenact sections 19.2303, 19.2303.1, and 19.2306 of the Code of Virginia, and to amend the code by adding a section numbered 19.2306.1 relating to probation, revocation, and suspension of sentence limitations.
The delegate from Portsmouth, Delegate Scott.
Yes, Madam Speaker, speaking to the governor's recommendation.
Delegate Scott, you have the floor.
The recommendation I would urge the body to support these recommendations. The first recommendation just is a technical one in nature. It makes sure that the sentence that's referred to as an active term of incarceration. The second change is to make sure that when folks who have absconded from probation, even though it's a technical violation, that their time of being absconding or being absent will toll against that period, and so they won't get credit for any time that they were absconded from, or they were absconded or unable to be tracked at that time, or out of touch with their probation officer. They wouldn't get credit for that amount of time, and the judge could reimpose a period that would exclude the amount of time that they were absconded from, if that makes sense for some folks. And I'll give an example if folks need it. And then the third option is the third recommendation is when folks have a restitution outstanding, that then the court can make sure that that restitution is paid, even though they may not be placed back on a period of probation, that they would be required to be tracked until the restitution is paid. In accordance with the section 18.2-305.1, which is some language that says when a defendant owes restitution and is still subject to restitution compliance. And so there will be hearings that may not be probation, but it makes sure they pay their restitution. And I urge the body to accept the governor's amendments.
Shall the governor's recommendations be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Bagby has voted. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Edmonds has voted. Delegate Ferris. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Munden King has voted. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 57, nays 42, abstentions 0.
Ayes 57, nays 42, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Page 16, House Bill 2040, an act to amend and reenact sections 60.2619 and 60.2633 of the Code of Virginia relating to unemployment compensation, continuation of benefits, repayment of overpayments.
The delegate from Charlottesville, Delegate Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the governor's recommendations.
Delegate Hudson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The governor has sent us two recommendations, both helpful and small. The First Amendment changes a date in the third enactment clause from Saturday, June 26th to Sunday, June 27th. This will correctly align the bill with the weekly calendar of payments which begin on Sundays. The Second Amendment removes the language as of July 1st, 2021 in the section of the bill that stipulates when waivers apply to outstanding balances. This better expresses the intent of the bill and recognizes that some payments may occur before July, but that the appeals process may not close until after July 1st. All of the provisions of the bill will still sunset in July 2022, as was agreed upon in the conference report. I hope it will be the will of the body to approve both amendments.
Shall the governor's recommendations be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 57, nays 43, abstentions 0.
Ayes 57, nays 43, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
House Bill 2047, an act to amend and reenact sections 19.2, 120, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to criminal proceedings, consideration of mental condition and intellectual and developmental disabilities.
The delegate from Richmond City, Delegate Bourne.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, speaking to the amendments.
Delegate Bourne, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 2047, just as a quick reminder, allows the introduction of evidence of a mental illness or intellectual and developmental disabilities to be considered in the guilt phase of a criminal trial. The governor's amendment changes the provision that allows a court to issue a TDO or temporary detention order, and instead allows the court to issue an emergency custody order pursuant to 37-2-808. The reason for this change is that under an ECO or emergency custody order, the person is required to be evaluated by a CSB or a behavioral health authority or its designee to determine the extent to which the individual meets certain criteria for involuntary commitment. The enrolled bill would have allowed the court to bypass the usual TDO process, and so allowing or changing the language to require an emergency custody order is a better vehicle and better way to get the person assessed and hopefully get the treatment that that person might need. And I hope it'd be the will of the body to adopt the governor's amendments.
Shall the governor's recommendations be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Austin has voted. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Delaney.
Delegate Delaney votes aye.
Delegate Delaney votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Munden King. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 71, nays 29, abstentions 0.
Ayes 71, nays 29, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
House Bill 2055, an act to amend and reenact sections 20-108.1 and 63.2 1918 of the Code of Virginia relating to child support obligations, parties' incarceration not deemed voluntary unemployment or underemployment.
The delegate from Portsmouth, Delegate Scott.
Madam Speaker, speaking to the governor's amendment,
Delegate Scott, you have the floor.
I would recommend voting in favor of the amendment. The governor has asked for a little bit more time to work on this next year, so it's a reenactment clause that's added, and you got to know we're not the fight City Hall, so I'd urge the members to support the governor's amendment. Thank you.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Carter. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 57, nays 42, abstentions 0.
Ayes 57, nays 42, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Page 17, House Bill 2113, an act to amend and reenact sections 9.1, 101, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to sealing of criminal records, penalties.
The delegate from Alexandria, Leader Herring.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that we adopt the governor's recommendations. And speaking to that motion.
Leader Herring, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The governor's action included some technical amendments to clarify which records are eligible to be sealed in the criminal record system. So it's grammatical corrections in the bill and the governor's recommendations. Also, there are amendments to ensure record sealing can go into effect as soon as practicable. As I mentioned during the General Assembly session, the work needs to be done to make sure that the court systems are able to interface with the state police. And then the process information will be provided when they're ready to go on the automatic sealing, and the chairs of the courts of justice, Senate Judiciary, and Superintendent of the State Police and the Executive Secretary of Supreme Court will have notification, and then the process will begin the first day of the 4th month after notice is given. Madam Speaker, I move again that we adopt the governor's recommendations.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 60, nays 40, abstentions 0.
Ayes 60, nays 40, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
House Bill 2133, an act to amend the Code of Virginia by adding in Title 19.2 a chapter numbered 19.4 consisting of sections numbered 19.2 327.15 through 19.2 327.20 relating to issuance of writ of vacatur for victims of commercial sex trafficking.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Delaney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the amendment.
Delegate Delaney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members of the House. House Bill 2133 is a bill that passed the General Assembly unanimously during this session, which creates a process for survivors of sex trafficking to have certain criminal records vacated and police and court records expunged for those offenses. The governor's amendments conform the definition of victim of sex trafficking to House Bill 2234, which creates an affirmative defense for victims of sex trafficking. Conforming these two definitions ensures the two code sections cover the same group of people and will not create unintentional conflicts within the law. I urge the body to accept the governor's amendments.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Bagby has voted. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Page 18, House Bill 2138, an act to amend and reenact sections 24.2, 411.3, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to identification privilege cards, fee, confidentiality, penalties.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Guzman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to move the governor's recommendations, and I would like to speak to that motion.
Delegate Guzman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 2138 would allow non-drivers and children in the documented community to receive an identification card from the Department of Motor Vehicles. The governor amended the legislation at DLS recommendation to address a drafting error. And the reasoning is that we wanted to put the language of this bill in alignment with bills that have passed this House in the past. And so we can have the same protections for these individuals. So I would ask members of this body to accept the governor's recommendations, Madam Speaker.
Shall the governor's recommendations be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Ayala has voted. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Freitas. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Jones. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 59, nays 41, abstentions 0.
Ayes 59, nays 41, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
House Bill 2167, an act to amend and reenact sections 53.1-136 and 53.1-155 of the Code of Virginia relating to parole, notice and certification, monthly reports, discretionary early consideration.
The delegate from Portsmouth, Delegate Scott.
Madam Speaker, speaking to the governor's recommendation.
Delegate Scott, you have the floor.
The governor's recommendation, first of all, this bill passed this body unanimously. The governor's recommendation moved the date of enactment from July 1, 2022 to December 15, 2021 of this year, so we can get this ball rolling faster. And so I would ask the body to adopt this, the governor's recommendation. Thank you.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Brewer. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye. Delegate Wampler has voted.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Page 19, House Bill 2168, an act to amend and reenact Section 18.2, 325, and other sections of the code relating to illegal gambling, skills games, civil penalty, enforcement by localities, and Attorney General.
The delegate from Portsmouth, Delegate Scott.
Madam Speaker, speaking to the governor's recommendation.
Delegate Scott, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker, the governor's recommendation removes the reenactment clause that, from what I've been told by a lot of billionaires that make a lot of money off of poor people gambling, is that that the bill would maybe make it ambiguous about skill games having an extension, so that we can take away any ambiguity around that, a policy decision that's already been made. I want to ask the members to support the governor's recommendation. Thank you.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Bagby. Delegate Brewer.
And voted yes. PA.
Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Cole, JG. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate McQuinn. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 76, nays 23, abstentions 0.
Ayes 76, nays 23, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
House Bill 2174, an act to amend and reenact Section 23.1701 and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to state-facilitated IRA savings program establishment.
The delegate from Prince William, Chairman Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, speaking to the governor's recommendation.
Chairman Torian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, HB 2174 is the Virginia Saves IRA program. It's the Virginia Saves is an optional portable state facilitated IRA program. Virginia Saves will be run by the Virginia 529 and will promote retirement savings for private sector employees who otherwise would not have such a retirement plan. But the governor's language, what he does, he strikes the 30-hour work week requirement, which now makes available for 156 part-time employees across the Commonwealth. They are now eligible to apply for the IRA program. Madam Speaker, I would ask that we would adopt the governor's recommendation.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Aird. Delegate Brewer. Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate McQuinn has voted. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay. Delegate Wampler has voted.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 55, nays 45, abstentions 0.
Ayes 55, nays 45, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
House Bill 2207, an act to amend and reenact Section 65.2, 402.1 of the Code of Virginia relating to workers' compensation, presumption as to death or disability from COVID-19.
The delegate from Norfolk, Delegate Jones.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the governor's recommendation.
Delegate Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of the House. House Bill 2207, as you'll remember, establishes a presumption for COVID-19 under the workers' compensation framework for firefighters, emergency medical services personnel, law enforcement, correctional officers, and regional jail officers. We passed it during session, retroactive to September 1st of 2020. The governor's action amends that retroactivity to July 1st, 2020. And I would move adoption of the governor's recommendation.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Brewer. Delegate Campbell, J.L.
Delegate Campbell votes aye.
Delegate Campbell votes aye. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes aye.
Delegate Runyon votes aye. Delegate Sickles. Delegate Williams Graves.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 97, nays 0, abstentions 2.
Ayes 97, nays 0, abstentions 2. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
Page 20, House Bill 2295, an act to amend the Code of Virginia by adding a section numbered 18.2 to 83.2 relating to carrying a firearm or explosive material within Capitol Square and the surrounding area into building owned or leased by the Commonwealth, etc. Penalty.
The delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Levine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the governor's recommendation.
Delegate Levine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. HB 2295, the body will recall, prohibits the general public from bringing firearms or explosives into the Capitol, Capitol Square, and state-owned buildings and offices. There were a number of underlying exemptions, I should say, in the underlying bill, so that those that work in those places can continue to carry, people like police and certainly folks that work in courts and in jails. So most magistrates were covered already. However, the governor points out that there are magistrates who don't work in jails and don't work in courthouses. So what the bill does, it adds an exemption for magistrates, any magistrate, wherever they're located, acting in the conduct of the magistrate's official duties. I urge the body to pass the governor's recommendation.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Bagby. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Carter. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Jenkins. Delegate Mullen. Delegate Poindexter.
Delegate Mullen votes aye.
Delegate Mullen votes aye. Delegate Poindexter. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay. Delegate Scott.
Delegate Poindexter votes nay.
Delegate Poindexter votes
Nay.
nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 52, nays 46, abstentions 0.
Ayes 52, nays 46, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendation is agreed to.
House Bill 2312, an act to amend and reenact sections 2.2, 221, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to marijuana, legalization of simple possession, penalties.
Madam Speaker, parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, delegate from Caroline, Delegate Auroch.
Madam Speaker, I would raise a parliamentary inquiry relative to the germaneness of the measure given the specific lines of 7295 through 7298. This language puts an additional criteria on an employer that doesn't exist anywhere else in code, has never been approved by the General Assembly, goes beyond the scope of the original legislation, and introduces a whole new policy that has never been approved by this body. Would the Speaker please rule on the germaneness of such language, and if it is not germane, given that this is a substitute, would not the whole measure then be non-germane?
The House will be at ease. The House will please come to order. The delegate from Caroline asked a question with regard to germaneness, and I think it quite clearly, the governor's recommendations as a whole are definitely germane to what we passed. So I will move on and call the delegate from Alexandria, Leader Herring.
Madam Speaker, further parliamentary inquiry?
Yes, the delegate from Caroline, Delegate Auroch.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, let me begin by, I miss our days when we could confer at the dais and have a full and thorough discussion. But is it therefore your ruling that if any part of a substitute is non-germane while the remainder of it is, does this not set the precedent whereby that pretty much any substitute largely germane to the original measure could encompass a number of matters beyond the original scope, and if done as line amendments would subsequently be ruled non-germane?
That is not what I said. Actually, I just made a ruling. You asked a question, you had a parliamentary inquiry, and I answered it. The governor's recommendation as a whole is germane, and we will move on.
Madam Speaker.
Delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Further parliamentary inquiry.
Delegate Gilbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You have ruled, my question would be whether your ruling contemplates Article 4, Section 12 of the Virginia Constitution, which says no law shall embrace more than one object, which shall be expressed in its title. And given the fact that this is labor law being infused into the marijuana bill, I would ask if your ruling contemplated that section of the Constitution.
Yes, Delegate Gilbert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The delegate from Alexandria, Leader Herring.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that we adopt the governor's recommendations and speaking to that motion.
Leader Herring, you have the floor.
And thank you, Madam Speaker. Over the past month, we have worked with the governor to develop a package of amendments that strengthen the cannabis legalization bill. The amendments fund public health and safety campaigns and speed up the timeline for simple possession for adult use, create protections for workers in the industry, and simplify the process for sealing marijuana-related criminal records. We already voted for the budget amendments, but I do need to review that it does provide $1 million to train law enforcement officers to be better equipped to recognize drug driving. And I thank everybody in this chamber who voted for that, even though you may not support this bill. And that is because currently Virginia does not have a robust data about the rates of drug-impaired driving, including THC. Crashes or traffic stops that do not involve a fatality often yield little to no data about potential drug use. Additional DREs will help Virginia gather more comprehensive data on drug-impaired driving. Also, the bill does call for funding for public awareness campaigns and health and safety risks, education about marijuana use. Now, the bill does legalize simple possession and home grow to be effective July 1st, 2021. Before we decriminalized marijuana last year, Black Virginians were more than 3.5 times likely as our white counterparts to be arrested for marijuana. Data from the court shows that this disproportionate trend has continued since decriminalization. The governor's amendments move up the date of legalization of simple possession to this July, so that we can get the police out of the business of stopping individuals for having small amounts of marijuana. The amendments would make it legal for someone over the age of 21 to have less than an ounce without an intent to distribute. The governor also recommends allowing adults over the age of 21 to grow 4 plants in their homes. That's 4 plants per household, not per person. And the plants must be outside of the public, out of reach of people under 21, and labeled with the person's name and ID number. Along with those changes, the amendments make updates to the criminal code to establish public health and safety guardrails. These include prohibiting underage use, possession while driving a vehicle, possession on school grounds, and public consumption. Virginia would not be alone in having legalized simple possession before legal sales. Other states such as Colorado, Vermont, New Jersey, and the past few days, New York, made the same choice.
This is because there's a straightforward injustice to punishing people for something we've already agreed should be legal, especially when we know that the punishments are given out inequitably. There are protections for workers. The governor recommends adding language that will ensure that the estimated 11,000 jobs in the industry that will be created will allow Virginians to make a decent living. Specifically, the language allows the Board of the Cannabis Control Authority to revoke a license of the cannabis business if a company refuses to remain neutral regarding any union organizing efforts by employees, doesn't pay a prevailing wage per the United States Department of Labor, or labels more than 10% of the employees designated as independent contractors, except in a case when it is a worker-owned cooperative. The provisions of the bill must be reenacted next year, along with other sections dealing with licensing.
Madam Speaker, I apologize for interrupting, but I believe the feed is down.
Delegate Mullen?
Madam Speaker, I believe the feed is down right now and the public can't hear the leader.
The House will be at ease. The House will please come to order. I think we are back up. The feed is up. So, Leader Herring.
And thank you, Madam Speaker. The governor's recommendations also include provisions for eliminating parts of the code that calls for removal of public officials for use of marijuana. It updates the code section that allows for removal of public officials for misconduct. Beginning in 2024, the amendments would remove the ability to remove local constitutional officers, school board members, and some other public officials for office for marijuana-related offenses. Note, the Constitution of Virginia specifies how many public officials, including judges, members of the General Assembly, and the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, must be removed. The law that is being amended, section 24.2-233, deals only with officials whose removal the Constitution does not specifically provide for. There is clarification of sealing provisions. As our state's policies toward marijuana change, justice demands that we clear the records of individuals who are convicted of marijuana crimes in the past. We made this decision as a body last year when we began sealing Virginia records for simple possession. Unfortunately, it will take several years for state agencies, the state police and courts namely, to make updates to their computer systems and other processes before we can fully seal or expunge records. My broader enhanced sealing bill, along with Senator Servo's bill, and supported by the governor's budget, makes these changes and will allow for people to seal many types of records beginning in 2025. In the meantime, the governor's amendments will seal in the state police's database misdemeanor possession with the intent to distribute records on July 1, 2021. This will not seal records from court systems or third-party vendors, but it is a step in the right direction. The governor's amendments also allow for more comprehensive sealings to begin on or before 2025, as soon as the state agencies are able to make the needed updates. Lastly, the governor's amendments simplify the process for getting marijuana-related records as opposed to all other sorts of records sealed by lifting the time caps on the number of times one can have a record sealed and not making the sealing dependent upon having a clean record for 7 years. Over the last year and a half, we made significant improvements to our state's criminal justice system. We do have work ahead of us, but these changes help to keep us moving in the right direction. The time has come for our state to legalize marijuana. The amendments ensure that while we're doing the complicated work of standing up a commercial market, we aren't delaying immediate reforms that will make our Commonwealth more equitable for all Virginians. Madam Speaker, again, I move that we adopt the governor's recommendations.
Thank you, Leader Herring. The delegate from Bedford, Delegate Byron.
Can you hear me?
You're coming in very softly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Speaking to the governor's amendments.
Delegate Byron, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The substitute before us does something the majority caucus pointedly refused to do during session. It places an unambiguous up or down vote on Virginia's right to work law on the House floor. Although the substitute was not crafted by him, we should all congratulate the delegate from Manassas on achieving this vote that his colleagues so furiously stopped in February. There is so much wrong with this substitute, it's hard to know where to begin. When this bill left this chamber on the last day of session, it was not in great shape. The conference report limped out of here, it squeaked by in the other chamber, and made its way to the governor's office. Then the governor did what those of us who opposed this measure thought was impossible. He made it worse. One of the especially objectionable provisions that the governor inserted into this bill can be found on page 148, beginning with the line 7295. There, he inserts a series of provisions to which licensees must adhere or risk losing their license. And those provisions allowing card check, mandating prevailing wage, and restricting independent contractors stand in contradiction to Virginia's right to work law. Nothing in existing state or federal law requires an employer to remain neutral in any discussion over the formation of a union with their employees. This would remove federal protection and questions the constitutional status of the entire bill. The right to work is the cornerstone of the Virginia business climate and attraction to do business in our Commonwealth. Is this the future for businesses licensed by the Commonwealth? Who will be next that requires a license from government to operate? Are we to become a closed shop state where workers are forced to pay union dues in order to be employed by businesses licensed by the state? If we approve this substitute, that's exactly where we're headed. The delegate from Manassas may not have been able to get the vote he sought in February, but it is before you today. In voting on this substitute, I would urge this House to heed the advice of a former First Lady of the United States, who made preventing drug abuse among children her cause. Just say no. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Byron. The delegate from Winchester, Delegate Wiley.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Would the patron yield for a question?
I yield.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I just have a couple quick question in regards to the plant usage for the individuals that want to do this at their home residence. How does one go about getting a plant or seeds or whatever you do to make these grow in your own residence? And secondly, how do you go about, getting your own consumption or use of marijuana in your own possession? And I'll yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Wiley. Leader Herring.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would just respond to the delegate that this bill seeks to address the inequities and enforcement. I would also answer the delegate that this body is not without precedent on acquisition of controlled substances that are prohibited by federal law. We did that in 2015, and so we are following precedent set by this body.
Thank you, Leader Herring. The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Ayala.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the amendment.
Delegate Ayala, you have the floor.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, today we are on the precipice of becoming the 16th state in the country to legalize marijuana, and yet again, our Commonwealth has the opportunity to lead the way. Listen to the conversations and listen to the amendment, and this is great work. And because of this great work, we're going to make great strides, and we were able to keep this bill alive so we can build bridges and strengthen this bill. And over the past month, the House and the Senate leadership have worked closely with the governor to speed up the date of legalization to the summer, expedite expungement for nonviolent offenses, and provided additional funding for public health and further reinvest in our communities who have been disproportionately hurt from this prohibition. Because of our work, this bill will legalize marijuana equitably, will provide protections for health and for workers, and this is what is good governance. It's what it's about. And as a mother, to a black son and black daughter, I know the visceral fear that our black mothers have when our sons and our daughters drive to work or go for a walk around the block or take a run. Legalization will help mitigate these fears. So I'm just trying to articulate that we have a choice today to let Virginia become a national leader, to show our country how to legalize marijuana equitably and continue to let our communities and not allow our communities of color to be disproportionately targeted. So I urge my colleagues to support the governor's amendments of both HB 2312 and SB 1406. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Ayala. The delegate from Botetourt, Delegate Head.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the governor's amendment.
Delegate Head, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, any carpenter is going to tell you that when you're working with lumber, you measure twice and you cut once. Now, why is that? Well, it's because if you get it wrong the first time, you've either got to cut again or you've got to make another trip to the lumber yard. Madam Speaker, the governor's substitute before this body right now has not been measured even once. It's been eyeballed from a distance with a loud, yeah, that'll probably work, and then it's been put to the saw blade. This bill's a train wreck. Now, I don't say that lightly. While I don't agree with the majority party's desire to legalize marijuana, I do understand it, and I respect the motivations behind it. I think the majority is acting in a way that they think will serve their constituents well. But that's part of what makes this bill so abjectly awful. The hard-fought compromise that barely made it out of this chamber and over to the Senate has just been discarded. And why is that? It's because some activists want marijuana legalized, and they want it legalized now, consequences be damned. Well, let's look at a few of the problems with this legislation. Now, when this bill left the House of Delegates, legalization and retail sales walked hand in hand. And the reason, as was so eloquently explained by the majority leader, was simple. These are her words. By aligning adult use legalization and sales, we will ensure that full legalization coincides with the establishment of a legal market and doesn't result in unintended consequences of endangering public health and safety by growing or enhancing an illicit market. And again, those were Leader Herring's words. Now, this bill would allow someone to have up to 1 ounce of marijuana with absolutely no penalty. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but considering that current law allows anything over 1 ounce to be considered possession with intent to distribute, an ounce is a lot. And from 1 ounce to 1 pound, there's only a civil penalty of $25. Now, Speaker, I'm not an expert on illegal drugs by any stretch, but I can tell you with absolute certainty that a pound of marijuana is, by golly, a lot of marijuana. And the sources that I found suggest that a pound equates to somewhere between 500 and 1,300 joints, depending on how they're rolled. And unless things have changed a lot since I was in college, 1,300 joints are not a recreational amount of marijuana. That's an entrepreneurial investment. And a $25 fine would simply be the cost of doing business at best, or at worst, a rounding error. Now, even the 50 to 80 joints that can be rolled from a single ounce is potentially, good heavy pocket money for the person that's possessing it. And the legislation increases demand for a product by removing the legal consequences without creating a legal market to provide that product at the same time. Madam Speaker, by legalizing before we have retail stores in place, we are supercharging illicit sales. And once these new customers become accustomed to buying from outside the legal system, which will not be collecting taxes and will therefore be a lot cheaper, then why on earth would they go to a retail store? Because the penalties have been removed. The entire purpose of this bill is to end the prosecution of marijuana possession and sales. And the only way to force sales into a controlled retail market is to arrest illicit dealers. And that's what we're already doing under existing law, which the majority party tells us is inherently racist, has to come to an end. Now, earlier today, this body adopted a budget amendment that will provide a mere pittance to train our police officers to detect and stop drugged driving. By doing some back-of-the-envelope math, I can figure out that only amounts to about $50 per officer in the Commonwealth. Now, there's no breathalyzer test for driving under the influence of marijuana. You have to do a blood draw, and that takes a search warrant. And getting impaired drivers off the road is not going to be easy. But we're giving those who would smoke and drive a head start. They'll be able to use marijuana legally before our police have the training and the experience to stop them if they choose to drive. Madam Speaker, if this policy change is to be undertaken, it has to be undertaken prudently. And I understand the enormous pressure on the majority party to make this change right now. I understand that opposing immediate legislation and legalization is going to anger many of your constituents. And I understand that taking the time to do this right might possibly even lead to charges of racism. But we have to do this right. And doing it right takes time. Measure twice, cut once. This substitute hasn't been measured at all. And so I would urge the body to reject it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Head. The delegate from Caroline, Delegate Orrock.
Madam Speaker, speaking to the measure.
Delegate Orrock, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker, members of the body, I'm going to take a little different tact on this. I know when all of us were sworn into office, we took an oath to uphold the federal and the federal and the state constitution. Last time I checked the federal constitution, it speaks of federal supremacy. Try as we might to make something legal here in this state, it is still against federal law. And given that I took an oath to uphold both constitutions, I think it would be a violation of my oath to thereby make something legal in state provisions that would be illegal under federal law and ignore our federal constitution and the oath I thereby made. I would encourage the body to vote against the measure.
The delegate from Alexandria, Leader Herring.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the governor's recommendations.
Leader Herring, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do want to address some of the issues and statements that were made. First, I want everyone to read, you probably don't remember, but we voted for the labor language that is being complained about it. That was in the House version of the bill. So you may not have supported the bill, but it was there, one. Number two, the Just Say No to Drugs. That is a failed policy. It ignores the reality of what people face. Some people self-medicate with drugs. Children are exposed to drugs when they shouldn't be. And just saying no is not good enough. That's what happened with marijuana, where we continue to penalize individuals and just say no as if there is some sort of internal weakness in the individual. So that is a failed policy and is not enough. This is not a train wreck. I will point to the fact that we in the House did want to make sure that there is some way that there people would have legal possession, and that's where we came up with the home growth. Some way to legally acquire. Again, that policy is something that was modeled after when the other side of the aisle was in power in 2015. We are following your lead on that. So please, let's be clear and let's be consistent. We modeled this policy after what you all did when you were in leadership. With respect to the illicit market, according to the governor's office and looking at other states, the illicit market did not explode and it did not expand. Admittedly, I did have a concern about that, but the evidence shows that it's contrary to what has been seen. There was reference to a pound of marijuana. Yes, that's a lot of marijuana. So, in the bill, we do have criminal penalties for a pound of marijuana. It is a felony possession, punishable by a term of imprisonment of not less than 1 year, no more than 10 years, and a fine no more than $250,000 or both. So we are not being soft on crime. I know that's what you would like to believe, but that is not the case. There are criminal penalties for someone with the possession of a pound. With respect to the DREs and the direct recognition expert, it was broken down and given a dollar figure of $50 an officer. What this allows is the employment and training of 22 certified DCREs. Again, as I said at the beginning when I presented this bill, Virginia has not, and I don't want to necessarily put blame on the state, but what we have not done is really collect data when we're talking about driving under the influence, whether it could be for medication. Things are not investigated unless there's a fatality and that data is collected. This will give us an opportunity to collect further data, which will help us with education and prevention. And Madam Speaker, I appreciate the opportunity to carry this bill, and I move again that the amendments, the governor's recommendations be adopted.
Thank you, Leader Herring. The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Madam Speaker, I rise for a motion.
Delegate Mullen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I called pending question.
Delegate Mullen moves the pending question. As many as favor that motion shall say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The question is called. Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Avoli. Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes yea.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Mugler. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay. Delegate Watts.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 53, nays 44, abstentions 2.
Ayes 53, nays 44, abstentions 2. The governor's recommendations are agreed to.
Page 21, House Bill 2327, an act to amend and reenact Section 2.2, 4321.3 of the Code of Virginia relating to the Virginia Public Procurement Act, payment of prevailing wage, transportation infrastructure projects.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Krizek.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the governor's recommendation.
Delegate Krizek, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As we remember, this legislation clarifies that transportation infrastructure projects are considered public works under the existing law requiring the payment of the prevailing wage in certain circumstances. But as it reads now, House Bill 2327 references a code section that will no longer exist on May 1st. So what the governor has done, he's inserted that definition of state agency in here, and that's really it. It's just a technical amendment. I urge the body to adopt the governor's amendment.
Shall the governor's recommendations be adopted? Madam Clerk.
Delegate Campbell, JL.
Delegate Campbell votes nay.
Delegate Campbell votes nay. Delegate Ferris. Delegate Herring.
Delegate Herring votes aye.
Ferris votes nay.
Delegate Herring votes aye. Delegate Ferris votes nay. Delegate Runyon.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
Delegate Runyon votes nay.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Ayes 55, nays 45, abstentions 0.
Ayes 55, nays 45, abstentions 0. The governor's recommendations are agreed to. We are going to go at ease as we check on the other body. The House will be at ease. House will please come to order. The delegate from Alexandria, Leader Herring.
Madam Speaker, I rise for a motion.
Leader Herring, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess until 4:10.
Leader Herring moves that the House stand in recess until 4:10. As many as favor that motion will say aye.
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 Those opposed? The House stands in recess until 4:10.